take an interview with me.
Thank you.
And let's just start at the beginning. When you entered the Army, what were you doing beforehand?
I had just graduated from high school, and I was to report to the induction station in August, and I had graduated in May, so a cousin of mine decided we'd go to Kansas, the wheat field. So we went to Kansas and worked in the wheat field, and then came home, and I was to go to Jefferson Barracks, where I was inducted into the Army, which is just south of St. Louis, or it's really now ends part of St. Louis, and that's where I was inducted.
Mm-hmm. Now, your basic training?
Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. First time practically I'd been out of the state of Missouri, being a Southwest Missouri fellow, and been raised on a farm. And back in those days, things were pretty hard, and so I was a little leery of getting out of the state of Missouri, because I was I fell in a farm, didn't get it around too much. But anyway, I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, spent 17 weeks there in basic training. Mm-hmm. The last day of basic training, we had just been out on 2 weeks bivouac, and I got back into the camp and got news that my brother had been killed in service. He was P-38 pilot.
Wow. So the transition from being a farm boy, basically, to a soldier, how did that...
It was quite different. Being out on the farm, you didn't see too many people very often. Well, you saw people too, but then being in a group of men all the time, it was very, very much of a change, but I enjoyed it. Be the comradeship of the fellows and everything.
Now, how did you come to be assigned to the 12th Armored Division?
I was a replacement. After the fellows had done most of the battle work, I joined them at Feuchtwang in Germany, which was after they had crossed the Rhine and before they crossed the Blue Danube. You know, the 12th captured the bridge at the Blue Danube, and I crossed there with them and went on for the rest of the war. I believe we entered we were in North Austria when the war was over, and after the war was over, we pulled back to a little town called Dillingen, and that's where we spent a part of the time. Now after that, I had 16 points. You know, we had to have 82 points in order to go home. I didn't know whether I'd ever make it back home or not, but anyway, I was transferred then to the 1st Armored Division, the Baker Battery of the 68th Armored Field Artillery Battalion. And I spent the rest of my time there, except during that time, they were starting a new organization called the Constabulary. A lot of people have never heard of the Constabulary. But anyway, this was a unit that was trained to do occupation duty, to patrol the American zone, and also to be law enforcement for both the Army and civilians. This was quite a unique organization, actually. It's the only organization in the history of the United States Army that never served on American soil. It was activated actually in either the last part of 45 or the early part of 46. It went from 1946 to 1953, and it was disbanded. So it was activated in Germany and deactivated in Germany.
So tell me your impressions, or how did that work dealing with the German civilians shortly after the war?
It went smoothly, really. The Germans knew that they were going to have some kind of law, and so we always had a German interpreter with us whenever we went out on patrol, and they were very cooperative, really. That's one thing I admire the German people about. They knew that they had been, well, I won't say whipped, but they knew that they had lost the war. And a lot of the people, I'm sure, were not too enthused with Nazism.
So, now, pressing on, tell me about some of the people or experiences, anything that stands out in memory dealing with even the German civilians.
Well, I don't know that there's anything in particular with the German people, but with the fellows that I operated with in the constabulary, knew their business. That I was actually picked as cadre to start this organization, one of the cadre, and the fellows that had just come in back from the States, after the war was over, they were glad that they didn't have to go into combat, and they were glad also that they were in this organization. It was one of the most, how do I want to put it, well, anyway, they were sharp. The soldiers were dressed sharp. We had a helmet that was painted green, had a yellow stripe around it, and in the middle of the front of it was a C with a lightning bolt through it. The motto was quality, vigilance, justice. That was the motto of the constabulary. And the boys always looked sharp. And the officers also it's made the boys want to be sharp. They were representing the United States, and they did a good job of it.
Oh, fantastic. Anything else you feel you'd like to add or bring up?
One of the most memorable things that I can remember is that I had my 19th birthday in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And a cousin of mine happened to be on the ship at the same time. And he and I had a big celebration. We had a Coke and a candy bar. But it was I enjoyed my time in the occupation. It was a learning experience, and it was also a growing experience. When I got back home from the service and returned to military or civilian life, I felt I was a better man from having been in the service. I also had another experience, and the government wanted to know how these soldiers were going to go back into civilian life. They brought professors and college people from the United States to Biarritz, France. I don't know whether you've ever heard of it. They called it Biarritz American University. You could volunteer to go to the school, and if you made your grades the first month, you got to stay the second month. It was only a 2-month school. But anyway, we had taken over civilian hotels. This Biarritz was a resort town. We took over those motels. We had German or French chefs. We had German maids, and all we had to do was study. And a guy always made his first months. Got always grades first month. The second month you might relax just a little. But that was one of the things that I did get from the service that I enjoyed very much. So I've got about, I think it's 4 hours of chemistry and 4 hours of physics. That's all the college I have. When I got back home, I got the, how do they call it, where you work. It escapes me. But I got a job, on-the-job training. I got on-the-job training, and I become a commercial printer.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you.
You're welcome.
For agreeing to sit with me and actually bringing up the constabulary, the first person we've talked to who had experience in
Is that right?
Yes, so that's going to be a little something for the historians.